Hello everybody and welcome back to Beyond the Visor, the second episode this evening. I just want to say a quick thank you for everybody who watched the first episode with Danny. Got amazing response to the video. Thank you so much for that, and hopefully you enjoy the second episode as much as the first. Joining me this evening, he is an AOR commentator. He's an all-round nice guy in the community. His name is King Kodiak. How are you doing this evening, pal?
What an introduction. Thank you very much. I'm very well. I'm fed and watered, which is always a good start. So any activity, and irrespective of what it is.
Well, yeah, you got to be watered and ready for anything in life, and I'm sure you're all ready for this interview today.
Absolutely.
And yeah, if you haven't watched the series before, guys, this is a series where we get to know the F1 community, get to know them in person, and just get to know, just to understand how they are as a person, and get to know some personal details, hopefully, as well. But I'll start off, of course, you are an AOR commentator, and how is life being an AOR commentator?
Busy as hell. I started at AOR. I started my commentary career at AOR. It all took off very quickly 2 years ago. And since then, I've just kind of risen through the ranks, making more of a nuisance of myself on the F1 series, Project Cars, occasionally R Factor and iRacing as well, for all primarily for AOR. I've done sporadic bits of commentary elsewhere, but AOR has been the mainstay of my commentary career. Done some stewarding, still do some stewarding, again, F1 and P-Cars related. Became head commentator as AOR really started to grow commercially at the beginning part of the year. So when we needed kind of coordination with the commentators, of course, the more demands put on the league, the coverage obviously needed to grow as well. It just became too much for the select few, so I was drafted in for that. With the latest recruitment round going on, particularly for the new F1 leagues due to launch soon, it's kept me exceedingly busy, but that's what I do. That's looking after the league that has looked after me so well since I started. For the final time, 3, 4, 5 lights, wind them up and let them go. A very good start there by Brendan Lee. Already cuts off Formula Danny. Did not want to leave that to chance then. And Marcel Kiefer flies through, banged into the side of the Sauber, but gets that really thrown straight back at him. And wow, that was Brendan Lee already capitalising on that little ruckus between the Sauber and the Force India. Look at that. That's Steve in the Haas trying to do something on the inside of turn 4. Doesn't quite get the move done. Whoa, that's Carey that's flown wide. He's going to lose a few positions as a result of that. But he's carrying on unharmed. Look at that side by side. That's Kiefer and Steve. They're banging now. The switchback on the Haas is on the inside for turn 8. What a beautiful move. And Kiefer's still under pressure by Sorensen and the Williams. And there is Carey trying to make up for the positions he's already lost. Wow, it is happening everywhere.
Of course, yeah, it seems the AOR has picked up massively recently with the Hype Energy Drink sponsorship, the graphical updates we've had, and the website being really revamped recently. How hard is it to sort of balance sort of helping AOR and your commentary and sort of balancing real life? I know you've got kids and a family and a dog, of course. How hard is it to balance everything?
Very. the honest answer. I would love to commentate absolutely everything under the sun. If I'd found commentary at a stage in my life where I didn't have commitments, I'd be commentating everywhere and ruin my voice very quickly. I love it. I realized I loved it when I very first did it. Back in, way back in the day. And of course, I have to keep in mind that I have 2 young children, both started school. Any parents out there will realize how much of a time that takes. Of course, time with my wife and family activities as a whole. As much as I would love to be behind the microphone all the time, it wouldn't be good for me. But of course, balancing the life activities. Full-time job gets in the way, annoyingly, but there we go. Sadly, not earning enough elsewhere to ditch the job. It's difficult, but I don't always get it right. Sometimes I think, oh, yes, that sounds a good idea. Let's sign up for that and realize that, oh, dear, I've got 5 commentaries this week. I'm in real trouble there. That's happened a few times over the last couple of years. But it's I have a very understanding family. that support me in what I do and what I love doing, and hopefully can make a full-time career out of in time to come.
Yeah, of course. We've seen you do F1 Esports, of course, like you said, Project Cars and F1. Would you say sort of your highlight of your commentary career at the moment is commentating the F1 Esports qualifiers on the 2017 game?
Probably been the biggest, the largest stage commentary wise I've been on. I have done some Rocket League outside of AOR as well. For Gfinity, I've got to commentate on the Europe's best Rocket League players. That was great. But it actually links into the previous question on balance. It became very obvious that as an EU caster to try and that was my first target actually of esports was Rocket League, and realized that it just wasn't going to happen for an EU caster unless you move to America, which ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen with a young family. But equally, I couldn't keep up with the actual Rocket League scene. It changes way too fast for me, along with everything that I do for primarily for AOR, but the rest of it. And I wasn't. Just to the point that I was getting into Rocket League was just as the F1 Esports was beginning to gain traction. Pun unintended. But so I had to make a choice, and knowing that I would have to sacrifice too much for Rocket League, that had to go, sadly. Which sometimes I think, oh, maybe I'll give it a try again, but realistically, that situation hasn't changed. So as far as the kind of biggest stage I've done so far, commentary-wise, would be the F1 Esports qualifiers.
So you haven't delved into doing any real-life commentary as of yet?
Not as yet. The thought has crossed my mind, but again, it comes back to balance. And
of course.
Real life commentary would have to take place at weekends, and I'm very loath, with my children being so young, I'm very loath to cut into time with them that much. Would love to do it, don't get me wrong, but I'm reluctant to take too much time away from my children.
Yeah, I can imagine, like you said, it is a kind of tough balance. I guess a lot of people maybe watching this wouldn't understand the difficulty of balancing a family, being the F1 community is quite a young community compared to other communities on Twitter, on Facebook, and the rest of them. And so, of course, we can all tell you're a motorsport fanatic. What would you? I mean, you've met Jensen Button. We've seen you at Silverstone. What would you say your favorite or maybe best real life motorsport experience or moment is?
That would be Silverstone. Being at Silverstone, interviewing Jensen was absolutely brilliant, and he's been a hero of mine for a while. I live in the town that he's from, so that kind of helped make that moment happen. But that wasn't a motorsport event per se. That was him coming to the town to turn the Christmas lights on. So, although he did drive one of the previous McLarens around the streets of the town, which was rather awesome to see. I mean, it deafened you because it was one of the V8s, and they had to take all the speed humps out of the street, which was quite amusing. And he ruined the engine apparently because he just couldn't. Well, it was of course December, so it was freezing cold. Those things are not designed to run in winter temperatures, and the engine was toast after. But, but yeah, that was a great moment. He was a lovely man. Could have spoken to him for hours. But yeah, as far as actual motorsport related moment, it was just as you've already alluded, I am a motorsport fan. F1 has been my passion for many years. I'm an old boy in comparison to the community, exactly as you've alluded to. I'm 38 years of age. So I was following Formula One back when Senna and Prost were crossing swords back in the early 90s. So as a F1 history boffin as well, seeing some of the historic machinery there was absolutely awesome. So yeah, those two moments are very high up there.
Yeah, and you say you were around when Senna and Prost are battling away. What's your opinion on, I guess, Formula One at the moment with regards to the actual racing, I guess, compared to what you've seen already? I mean, a lot of people who will be watching it have only seen clips and highlights of past races from years ago. So what do you think of the current F1, how it's run and how it's been?
in my opinion, I mean, it gets a lot of stick, but I think the main reason that the sport gets a lot of stick is because social media gives the public the means, gives them the soapbox to stand on. You know, way back in the day, you'd have to write into a magazine or a newspaper or something, and that's something that a lot of the current generation will not be able to wrap their head around. And I can perfectly understand that. You know, I grew up in a time when the internet physically didn't exist, so you know, you might have had your opinions about it, but who were you going to shout to? You shouted to other people you happen to know nearby. You know, within 10 seconds of an incident happening, Twitter is alive. With various comments of "that's his fault," yada yada yada, with millions of people. So that's the bigger reason why I think F1 has got a lot of stick over the last few years, because the technology gives people to give the sport a lot of stick. I think it's probably in far better shape than it has been for a number of years, but also going forward, it has the people, the right place and the right people. And I very much specifically mean that Bernie Ecclestone's no longer there. He held Formula One, don't get me wrong, did a brilliant job of overhauling Formula One way back when he took it over. But he became stale and would not let it progress in the direction he had to go in. It had no choice. It had to embrace social media as one specific area. A whole lot of other things that it has to deal with, I absolutely grant you. But that was one area Ecclestone refused to engage in. Look at it now. Every single team is engaging with the fans directly. There's never been that kind of level of access before then.
Yeah, it's amazing to see how the teams are always bantering away with each other, and that means it's just, since Liberty Media have come in, it's just absolutely exploded, like you said, on social media, and it's great to see. It's great that there's more engagement with the fans. I think for me, so I've watched since about 2006, so Schumacher's last year, and I can see a difference even watching it. You know, in a small time frame, it's changed so much, and it is really good to see. And I imagine, all I can imagine is if Senna and Prost were around and their crashes in the current time on Twitter, Twitter would explode constantly if they were around in these. And you mentioned the community, and I don't always want to go back to it because I've mentioned it in the last episode of this series, and I've done it in previous podcasts. But from your point of view as a commentator and as an older person in the community, what's your opinion on the community? It's still quite toxic, and you know, I've just seen people arguing about the Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton crash at Monza this weekend at turn 4 and 5. So, what is it like from looking down into it from your point of view?
As far as from my position as a commentator, looking at the real life motorsport doesn't really alter any from anyone. You know, I'm a spectator. I'm yet to grace the real life commentator box. Oh, how I'd love to do that. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, I'm not in that level of privilege yet. But in some ways, I kind of look at it differently, but not so drastically from any other fan. I've gotten bored of listening to lots of, oh, that was your fault, that was your fault, that was your fault. Sports fans, irrespective of what sport you're thinking of, whether it's football, basketball, motorsport, baseball, whatever, you will always have the tribal, you know, the Ferrari fans, the McLaren fans, the Mercedes fans, you know, this team, that driver, whatever. And you'll always have those that will blindly follow whoever to the end of the earth. And you'll always have those that just like to incite riot for whatever reason. I'm bored of those now, so I tend to kind of, well, let those comments kind of wash under the bridge. It's a little bit, I'm getting that way when it comes to the commentaries I'm involved with for sim racing, because you know, I see it all the time of, oh, this commentator's crap or what have you, whether it's talking about me or when it's talking about one of the other AOR commentators, what have you, or you know, this driver's better than this driver. That sort of thing is, I'm getting to a point where I'm disregarding is the wrong word, but you know, letting them just wash under the bridge of, you know, this is just people supporting the art in their own way. You know, they're still getting involved. Not all, you know, in some ways you can say, oh yeah, they're just adding toxicity. some people are just adding toxicity because they can. Well, fine.
Mm.
They're generally very easy to spot and very easy to ignore. But when you've got a case of this person disagreeing with this person for this reason, that's different. That's more debate. How it's handled, of course, is another matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, but certainly as a early in my commentary career, it was very easy for me to think, oh, damn, they're arguing. Have I done something wrong? I'm my own worst critic in that respect. So I'm getting to a point now where I can, just let those comments wash off. There's people, as long as there's people still engaged, as long as you have more people enjoying what's going on than not enjoying what's going on, then it's going in the right direction.
Yes, of course. If you've got people enjoying, that's the important thing. And do you think, as a commentator, your style and the way you portray yourself in the booth has changed since you started?
Not to a massive amount. It's developed. It's gotten more polished. I would say. I have experience to know, when the action kind of dull. When you haven't got that the intense wheel-to-wheel action, let's look for something to talk about. Let's refer to past experiences of X Driver or X Track. I've got more experience in that regard, but the actual style, not particularly. But when I came to commentary, I had the advantage of having my own radio show for a couple of years, plus a lot of years' experience in the customer service industry. So to use one of my own phrases, I had a lot of practice on how to vocally present myself in a way that keeps the audience. Doesn't work for everybody. Of course, it doesn't work for everybody. Not, you will never entertain everyone. It's physically impossible, no matter what you try to do and in what field. And it's, again, very early on, I was thinking, oh no, why? Because I used to look at like the view count on the stream, and when it dropped down, I'd start to get nervous, and that would actually make me stumble. So I learned very early on that's pointless. It will go up and down. That's the nature of the beast. So I don't think my style has changed. I think it's improved. It's polished. I've just got more experience to fall back on.
Yeah, I think I've done quite a few commentaries, and I think it still affects me now when I see the viewership go up and down. It's quite a bad thing to get into my head, but I'm getting better as time goes on. But yeah, I mean, you said you were you had your own radio show on Froome FM a few years ago. Why did you stop being part of that radio station?
The only reason I stopped doing the show is because it was at 3:00 on a Saturday afternoon, and frankly, most people had better things to do. A lot of the time was watch the race. So it was just one of these things of it and it cut the weekend really awkwardly. Again, bear in mind I'm a father to young children, so it just, the timing of it was the only real reason I had to kick it into touch. If it was of a weekday evening, would have been much easier to maintain, but it wasn't. Of course, other guys had their shows booked in. That was the only slot available to me. I did that for a couple of years. It was great fun, but just timing, really. It was all that stopped it.
And you haven't tried to get back into radio by chance, or are you giving up that and want to go into a different area?
Well, since discovering commentary, that's definitely where my focus has been. Radio most certainly has its reason, and I would not, if I had the opportunity to, certainly. It's not something I've primarily gone to chase, although I did apply for the BBC New Voices scheme that was looking at Radio 5. Didn't get anywhere with it, sadly. But if the opportunity arose, I would certainly consider it, but it's not my primary focus.
Yeah, of course, commentary is your main focus, and I want to sort of change the tone. I want to talk about you sort of personally, and I wanted to ask, what would you say one of the more difficult things you've had to deal with in your life so far?
Outside of commentary?
Yes, outside of commentary.
It's a number of things. Christ, how long have you got? Well, I mean, let's kind of break it down to its bare parts.
Whatever you feel comfortable with talking with us.
Oh, I have no problem about talking But at my stage of life, I don't have a problem talking about things I've been through.
Mm-hmm.
I've suffered depression since I was very young.
Mm-hmm.
Which goes hand in hand with anxiety. I do have quite bad anxiety problems. And this is something that a lot of people will probably struggle to wrap their head around, considering a lot of people would know me just as King Kodiak, the commentator, is that I have very bad self-esteem problems.
Okay.
Which I've learned to, I have my own coping mechanism. Like I say, I'm 38 years of age, and I've dealt with this for a very long period of time. So, yeah, mental health issues is something that I'm very, very familiar with, and thankfully, I've got great support mechanisms in place now. But I've gone through some pretty rough stages in life that have been very, very trying. I was severely bullied at school, so that self-confidence just was not there. It was essentially never allowed to develop. So every time I tried to do something, I was shot down. So that made me exceedingly insular. It made me afraid to try things. So in a way, I mean, as much as kind of sim racing commentary's been around a lot longer than I've been involved with it, I never had the belief that I could actually try it because of my past history and like I say, my own self-esteem problems. I thought, oh, I could never do that. Yeah. And it was just one of the what actually inspired me to do it. Partly through confidence gained doing the radio show, actually, because when I'd started doing it, I mean, my own self-criticism, I can't listen back to my early stuff without going, oh God, that sounds horrible.
Yeah,
but then
yeah.
anytime you've been doing anything for a while, you will always look back negatively on the early stuff you've done. And that's the human condition. So once I kind of thought, you know what, I can do this. I can actually do something in the public eye. I can actually make something. I thought about doing like commentary for local race circuits. There's two within 45 minutes of here. Made some initial inquiries and got nowhere, but I had nothing to fall back on. If I tried it now, I might have a very different answer. So then it was just a random post I saw in the SMS forums for a new Project Cars league that was forming here at AOR, and it was just me thinking, I wonder if I could, and the rest has really just taken off from there. And the support I've had from AOR has just been incredible. So then that's always spurred me on to do more, to give back to the community that gave me that push. So yeah, I may well be very, very busy in everything I'm doing, but it's all giving back to the community that just gave me the belief that yes, I can do it. And and that's something I'm very very keen to stress. The whole mental illness thing is again, with social media, a lot of traction is gained, but male mental illness problems still has a long way to go before it gets anywhere near the support that it realistically needs. So it's something I'm very keen to kind of shed a light on should I ever kind of get to dizzy heights of stardom, so to speak. So, but it's something that any new commentators come to us, or anyone that speaks to me about how could I do it? Well, what's stopping you? Ability, sure, you can gain that. You've got to have the belief in there, but do not knock yourself back. It's very easy to be your worst enemy. Because I still am, so it's easy for me to say don't do it, and yet I still do it. And again, that's part of the human condition as well in a number of ways, being your own worst self-critic. But if you suffer these things, don't just think I can't do it because I've had depression before. Use, if you think you can, if you have I'd love to try it. And that is definitely, it doesn't matter what it is. If you think, I'd love to try it, find a way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great insight in how you think. And I think a lot of people who have suffered from depression, who have anxiety problems, struggle with these things and trying to get to a point. And you like you said, why not try? Why can't you do it? What's stopping you? I think that's what a lot of people struggle with. Why can't they do it? And exactly what you're saying is if people can do if you can do it, why can't anyone else do it? I mean, why not? That is a great insight. I've got goosebumps. That was really really good. Yeah, I'm sort of speechless after that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You're right. Yeah. And that's the thing with. I'm speaking from a level-headed perspective. You know, when the depression is fine, you know, the anxiety is under control.
Mhm.
When one or the other or both, it's at its worst, are going utterly off the wall, your brain comes up with 101 reasons why you can't do it, you shouldn't do it. You know, you'll be shot down in flames of doing it, yada 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 yada. And again, anyone that suffers those will know precisely what I'm talking about. And I do it even today, even though I've been doing this for a couple of years. There are times when I sort of get up in the morning and think, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I do it because I love doing it. And as soon as I get behind the microphone, I remind myself why I do it. It's because I love doing it. As soon as the racing's underway, the adrenaline is going, boom, off I go. Whereas someone that doesn't necessarily have the life experiences than I do may not have less, you know, will have less to draw on than me, of course. But even still, you've got to start somewhere. And it's all about taking that first step. The first step is so hard when the depression, the anxiety, the self-doubting on all of these voices are going completely screaming at you, you can't. What they invariably don't say is don't. They would invariably say you can't. There's not always there's almost never a correct reason as to why you can't. And it's just cutting through it, and it's very hard. My heart goes out to people that suffer it. I still suffer it, although I've got, like I say, I've got my own coping mechanisms that have taken me a very long time to kind of, I don't want to say perfect, but to get to the point where I am now. And if it wasn't for that first step, if it wasn't for the support I had, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have carried on doing it. I'd have thought, oh, that was a bloody waste of time, and stopped. And I'm very glad that I didn't, because it's given me a purpose. This is what I want to do for a career. I've had the opportunity to do esports, and long may that continue. I get to commentate on the best of AOR. Long may that continue. I have my own work to do to keep myself at the top. Yes, absolutely. But it's all, you know, the passion is as strong as it's ever been. And it's all started from that first try. That's where it all started from. And as soon as that ball starts to roll, as soon as you start justifying to yourself, I can do it. I've got the support there, people wanting me to do it. It can generate other problems. You can put pressure on yourself of, oh, I must do it to this standard. One step at a time. That first step is so hard. But as soon as you make it, as soon as you take that first step in something you really want to do, trust me, it will start to pay dividends in your own self-confidence and own self-belief far quicker than you think it will.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't great comments. I mean, have you ever thought about being a motivational speaker? I mean, that would a career. If a commentary doesn't go your way, you should definitely do motivational speaking. Is great. And like you said, hopefully people who are listening, who may suffer from these issues, can listen to what you're saying, and hopefully help them. And like you said, once the ball starts rolling, you know, it gets easier and easier. And you know, regards to commentary, you know, a lot of people are nervous doing their first time. I'm sure you've had some new AOR commentators that have never done anything before, and once they have their first, their second, it just builds and builds, and then they, you know, it's easy after that.
I mean, I was nervous the first time I did it. Despite the experiences I had, I was still nervous. I can spot it in myself. I mean, whether anybody else can is up to them. I can spot it, but then, one, I was there. I knew what I felt like. But two, I could just tell in certain stammers and certain things I stuttered with. But I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, I was exhausted after the very first one I did. And that was only an hour and a half long. I was shattered. I was totally knackered. I went to bed after it was done. I was so knackered. And I mean, I've done endurance events. I've been part of a 24-hour commentary team. I did 8 hours for them in 3 stints, not in one hit.
Oh, wow.
And Christ, yeah, that I was tired about. The longest kind of day-to-day stint, I've done 8 commentary stints in 5 days.
Wow.
That was hard.
I can imagine, yeah.
3 of those were F1 Esports qualifiers as well, so it wasn't like I had a choice on it. I say it wasn't like I had a choice. I mean, there was no way I was going to back down on that.
Of course, of course.
Yeah, but it was a case of like, finish on the Wednesday and plop, I'm done. Leave me alone for 4 hours.
Yeah, I can imagine. There's such to do that many in so few days. You must have been exactly. You were exhausted from all the work, and you said you've done different commentaries with different I say companies. Who would you say maybe your best, or maybe the most up and coming, your favorite commentator you've partnered with in the commentary box so far in your career?
I've partnered with several people in the box, and with varying levels of success. Hamish Sopwith is the guy I do my F1 commentaries with, and we have a very good synergy together, and that's a very, very important part of partnering with someone, is working well together. I've had it in other commentary combinations that both commentators are very, very good in their own right, but they just clash, and they just, of whatever reason, that synergy just bounces off one another. Or the synergy just isn't there because there's just a clash of style, clash of egos, whatever it is. So me and Hamish just work very, very well together. I mean, Hamish, I make this comment, and bless him, he's very polite on this, but the poor guy struggles to get a damn word in whenever I'm... Because when the adrenaline is going, and you yourself, as a fellow commentator, you can understand it. When the adrenaline is going, and whoosh, you're off. That's a hard train to bring the brakes on.
No, definitely.
So, and Hamish tries his best, and I'm forever cutting the bloke off because again, there's two very distinct styles of commentary, irrespective of how the commentator. They'll of course have their own style and anecdotes and what have you to bring to the table. There's two very different types of commentary: play-by-play and color. The color guy is color guy. Wrong phrase, but you know what I mean. The color commentator is there to add the analytical part to a commentary. So Martin Brundle from is the perfect F1 example of that, and the play-by-play is there to add energy to the action that's going on, which is of course David Croft, and that's exactly where I am. And unfortunately, when a play-by-play commentator is going for it, it's good luck stopping that. Oh, Marek's a little bit wide. Oh, Max then having a look on the outside of his teammate with Carey looking to make it 3 wide coming into the bus stop. Oh no, there's a Renault sandwich to the Ferrari on the outside. Massive contact, and Carey has gone up into effectively fourth position with other people pitting. Marcel Kiefer and Steve have come in. Marek did choose to jump straight into the pits. I'm not really surprised. Bonacuis and Fabrizio Donoso, 5 people jumping into the pits. What a move by the Ferrari. Good grief. That was, that was quite an ambitious move. There may well be some words said about that because poor old Marek had absolutely nowhere to go. So, and many a time when Hamish has been explaining something, has been adding insight and information to what we've been talking about, and something suddenly happens, I've had to just boom straight. Well, I say I've had to. My instinct has just cut in. It's not really a conscious thought. There's not a lot of, I mean, unless you're doing a commentary that's either very long, such as an endurance event, or you're in that kind of strategic phase, you don't get a lot of time to kind of think about what you're going to say. It's that is where instinct and experience comes in. Is knowing how to add entertainment, how to add energy, whatever you bring, is how to add that in the best possible way. So yeah, that's experience helps with that. But yeah, Hamish has had a hard time commentating with me. He says otherwise, but I think I always think he's been very polite. But one of my favorite, I mean, Hamish has been great to work with. One of my favorite commentators I've partnered with is Fate Goes Pirate, Justin Sutton. I've worked with him in AOR for previous F1 commentaries. I've worked with him outside of AOR as well. He was who I partnered for the F1 Esports qualifiers as well. The only thing that if it would be a hard decision to choose between if I had to pick Hamish or Justin. Justin's got more experience, and even from the very first commentary, I just bang, clicked, hit the ground running with Justin. Didn't take long with Hamish, admittedly, but Justin's just got that more experience behind him. So if I had to pick one person to go into a professional commentary box with, sorry, Hamish, but it would be Justin on that one. But Hamish would most certainly be the backup on that one.
Yeah, and with I think it makes it a little bit more difficult as well with regards to online commentary, because you're not in a box with that person. And I mean, when you see clips of Martin Brundle and Crofty together, you can, budge your elbow to say you want to say something, or you got your notes in front of you. It's a lot more difficult in the online world with only, the other person could be on the other side of the world trying to commentate with you. And, like you said, you've had to jump in at a moment's notice when something happens on track. And it does, I mean, from just watching streams, it does sound sometimes a little bit rude. I've done it to myself, and people have done it to me. It's just the way it is, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I mean, it's the way it is with online commentary. You try not to do it, of course, but it does happen. And as with you've got so much experience as a commentator, what sort of advice would you give someone who maybe has never done it before, and what was the sort of maybe some tips you'd give them to start off in a commentary career?
That was a question I was actually asked when I did my own Q&A when it was the 2-year anniversary, which happened to be on Silverstone weekend. I actually answered the Q&A at Silverstone, rather drunk. But that was a question I was asked. What advice would I give to a new commentator? And there's several pointers I would give. One, don't aim for the top honors first. The reason why, if you've never done it before, if you stick yourself straight in the pressure cooker, the general public will not thank you for it. And you just get so much pressure put on you. And if you haven't got the mechanisms to deal with that pressure, it will almost certainly kill your passion to commentate. And that would be the worst, to lose your want to do something because you haven't quite gone about it in the right way is a travesty. Because you could be the next great thing in that particular field. You could be the next great commentator, but if you just had that bad start and pack it in, you'll never know. You'll never realize that potential. So start small. I was lucky when I hit the ground running. AOR was a smaller entity, but I didn't pick. It wasn't like I went for the F1 league straight off. Even back then, F1 was the big ticket item for AOR. But I went for a small Project Cars league. So I had the opportunity essentially just say, well, given that one, let's see how he does. But there was no expectation on my shoulders. So, when I spoke to the higher ups in AOR at the time, I explained where my experience lies, but there was no, oh, wow, you've done this, you must be very good. It was a case of, okay, well, let's see how you do. And that is the absolute best way to start. Do not put too much pressure on your shoulders to be the next great thing straight out of the box. It's near impossible because the greats that are doing it have been doing it for a very, very long time. Justin Sutton, prime example, he's been commentating for over 4 years now. And I do not put myself in his league. Other people may disagree with that, and that's very kind of you to do so if that is the case. He is a lot more experienced than me, and I see him as the place I want to be. So that's where I aspire. But I didn't aim straight for that top spot. I didn't even know if I could do it when I started. So that helped me to not put too much pressure on my own shoulders. Because if I thought, oh, okay, I've done the radio show for a while, I can go and absolutely kill this. If I'd done badly with that, I'd have packed it in. I was like, oh no, I'm not anywhere near as good as I thought I would be, and I'd have never done it again. Knowing myself, I'd have packed it in, and I'm very glad I didn't do that. So that's the absolute first thing I would say is start small. Second thing, know what you're talking about. You can't know. Now, I don't mean a case of know where the wheels are, know where forward is. Not quite what I mean. Know the basics of the game that you're looking to commentate in, assuming you're talking about sim racing scenario or even any kind of gaming commentary, whether it be the likes of Dota or FIFA or League of Legends or whatever, doesn't really matter. Know the basics of the game. Don't have to necessarily know every single quirk. Only the game designers know every part of it. Know the fundamentals, know the basics, because I've had it many a time where I've tried to guess, and you'll be called out on that. I've had it where I've started commentating without that background knowledge, and I'll get called out on it. You will be called out on it. So just know the basics. play it for a bit, or just have an understanding of how it works. Like, for instance, the F1 games, never actually played them. I've only ever commentated on them.
Really? Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah. So that's cool. That has actually caught me out a few times. That's another reason why me and Hamish work so well, because Hamish is a former driver in the F1 series. I never have done. I went straight into commentary essentially blind. Where my experience came was I've been doing Project Cars for a while, but also F1 is my passion. If I'd done that the other way round, if I'd gone from F1 to, say, GT3 or Endurance, I know next to nothing about the real-life versions of those categories, but I know Project Cars pretty damn well. So that enabled me to use, again, my experience, and just my ability to keep the flow going and learn the bits I didn't know. It hasn't always worked. I have had people say, really wish the commentators would read this before going into it. Had it fairly recently, so it still happens to me even at this stage. Another thing is be prepared to be slated, because we all know this. You mentioned it earlier with the toxicity of the community, or toxicity of Twitter a little more specifically.
Yes.
It ain't ever going to go anywhere, because sadly you'll always have the keyboard warriors. And if you're new, it's so easy, especially like for people like me, again, referring back to kind of mental illness, lack of self-confidence, lack of self-belief. As soon as you see even one criticism, doesn't matter how many, and this is something that a lot of people that don't suffer these mental illness problems cannot wrap their head around, or really struggle. They see all these positive things come in, and you start to build yourself, and think, oh, great, one criticism, and it very often puts you right at the bottom of the ladder again. Because you'll see one thing wrong, and you yourself will magnify it. I've done it so many times to myself in many, many years of being on this earth. So it's very hard to keep context. You see the criticism, half the time it's just someone wanting to just, someone attention grabbing and wanting to be a troll. They're everywhere. They ain't ever going to go away, unfortunately. So it's a case of context. And this is why I say, if you've got more people enjoying what you're doing than not enjoying what you're doing, because there's always going to be people that don't like what you do, no matter how good you are. That's part of life. Then you're doing it right. Build on what works for you and what you enjoy to do. Because if you enjoy it, and this is the last new tip I would give, enjoy what you're talking about. Sounds a bit odd, because you think, well, I wouldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it. As soon as it feels like a job, and let's face it, we all work. Not many of us enjoy what we do. I don't. As soon as you get into oh God, have I got to do this? Stop. Don't do it, because that will come across in your commentary. It comes across in the content you're trying to make. It's the same with trying to make a Twitch stream, a YouTube stream. If you're not enjoying it, it's so obvious. But equally, if you're enjoying it, it's far easier to get the adrenaline going and get your energy behind it. As soon as you lose energy, you've had it. So there you go. Those would be the starting points I give to any new guy coming in, or girl, of course.
Of course. So write those down if you are new to commentary, because those are tips from an expert in the commentary field. And I wanted to sort of, what would you, so looking back over your life, if you could give sort of one piece of advice to yourself, what would you give? What would that piece of advice be?
Whether this is applicable to anybody else or not, it's certainly applicable to me when I was growing up and having my own self-esteem issues. Do not try to be popular with everybody. Physically impossible. It's worse when you've got anxiety and things like that, because you want to fit in. I never felt I fit. I mean, I'm not very good in academic situations, never have been, never likely to be. So I know never to be put in that particular position. You don't have a choice if you're at school. Unfortunately, you've got to go there. And my eldest son is kind of similar in a way. Poor lad is so much like me, it's unreal. But there are certain things there's a lot of things actually in him that I recognize in myself. Certain uncomfortable things, certain areas where he feels inadequate, I suppose is the right phrase to use, where he doesn't feel up to the mark. And when in a social environment, you want to fit in, you want to be popular, because you don't want to be the odd one out a lot of the time, because children are pretty damn brutal when it
Yes.
comes.
Yes, yeah.
So are a lot of adults, unfortunately. But as an adult, you tend to have your own ways of dealing with this. When you're a kid, you don't have those coping mechanisms by and large. So find where you belong. It may not be it won't be very easy, but there will be somewhere. You find where you belong because you will thrive in that environment.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Your point's far more, I'd say intellectual than Danny's point last week was don't care about girls when you're a kid. So your point is far better.
Good luck with that when the hormones are going absolutely nuts.
Exactly. Exactly. And I want to ask you one final question for this interview. What do you want to be remembered by in life and on Earth?
I would like to be, the legacy I leave behind as someone that would help those that are struggling. A very direct link to the mental health issue there, but beyond that, as someone that was there to help you, not to strike you down. Because my God, we've all been on the receiving end of someone just being an idiot and being a troll. And again, when you've got mental health problems, they, the old adage of sticks and stones may break my bones, yada, yada, yada. Don't give that to someone with mental health problems because it means nothing. Words hurt and they can be very, very damaging. The troll doesn't care. Of course the troll doesn't care. They wouldn't do it if they did. So it's a case of I would like to be remembered as those that, whether it's by someone that's come to me, wants to chat, feel free. Find me on Twitter. Have a chat with me if you want. I've got no problem with that. I may not have a lot of time to talk to you. So, but I've got no problem with it. If I help one person in their struggles, then I've achieved what I would like to be remembered by. If I help lots of people, wonderful. But that's that kind of thing to help to help and support people. That's what I would love to be remembered for.
I think that's a really powerful message to say. That's what you want to be remembered by. Some people want to be remembered by fame or want to be remembered by something that's sort of different. But for you to want to remember by helping people, and if you only help one person in life, you're happy with that. I think that's an amazing response to the question. But I think I will end it there. So guys, thank you ever so much for listening. If you're still listening at this point, if you are having any sort of trouble with mental health, with anxiety, commentary tips, my DMs are open, and Kodiak, I'm sure, will answer any question if he has time, of course, with his busy schedule. So go and do that on Twitter as well. So again, thank you for listening to this episode of Beyond the Visor. Don't forget to follow myself and Kodiak down below on YouTube and Twitter. It is in the description, and we'll see you in a few more days for a brand new episode of Beyond the Visor. Good night.